The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, I'm not even. We're just gonna do this. I don't have a whole man. All I wanted was to compete tonight. That's it. Like, I just wanted to have some belief that this team could compete. And there were moments where it looked like they could. There were moments. And look, I'm going to come straight out of the gate with like a perceived excuse. And anytime you're missing someone like AJ Brown, things are going to look different. They're going to feel different. They're going to, that's going to be the case. But like, the offense was inept. There was no plan. You can be in the camp of putting it on Jalen Hurts and he doesn't see things. He doesn't read things the right way. And I'm going to just laugh. I'm going to laugh. This was a guy who was a front runner for the MVP through 11 weeks. And then, according to sources from articles released today, the head coach took some play calling over. And the team doesn't know who's calling plays half the time. And all of a sudden, Jalen Hurts fell off a cliff. So put it on Jalen all you want. And if you are, we're just going to agree to disagree. And you can tell me I'm wrong all you want. But I'm going to tell you, this guy looked just fine when he had a consistent play caller in place and one who knew what the hell he was doing. I'm also going to sit here and tell you that clearly something's wrong with Jalen Hurts physically. Because the design runs went away entirely. Jalen was not an aggressive runner since like week 4 or 5, whenever they played the Rams. He just wasn't the same runner. We're going to find out that he was playing with something wrong in his knee. And I'm going to stick to that. And again, not an excuse. It's just fact. He wasn't the same guy. I was not in the fire Nick Sirianni camp. I wasn't. Like, up until the kickoff of tonight's game, I was not. But these guys have clearly quit on Nick Sirianni. Clearly quit on Nick Sirianni. The defense, I don't know what kind of tackling. He preaches fundamentals and aggressive play. And what was tonight? What was it? And look, I'm not going to get on him for abandoning the run because, clearly the Bucs came in tonight with the plan of, not letting them run the football. To me, it goes back to you're 0 for 9 on third downs. And we'll get into specifics as we go. This is just my initial rant. You're 0 for 9 on third downs. And people want to say that's a Jalen thing. He's not seeing the guys pre-snap or this, that, the other thing. Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, I can read that on Twitter. You can send me that in text messages, whatever you want. But you know whose opinion I'm going to listen to? Troy Aikman, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Ray Lewis, all 4 of whom called out the coaching staff, the play design, the ability to have this team prepared and put their players in a position to succeed. At one point, Ray Lewis said it might be the worst coach team he's ever watched. Troy Aikman was calling out play design from the first possession. The first possession. Those are 4 Hall of Fame players who were calling out coaching from the beginning of the game. And it didn't stop. Look, Jalen's not perfect. He's going to make mistakes. But he was the front runner for MVP week 11. He finished runner-up last year. Somewhere the coaching went off the rails. I want to get into the Patricia thing in a little bit, but I want to pause and just give you room, Regs. So I'm going to bring you in here and we'll get to all that. But what a dumpster fire. clean house. That's where I'm at. And it's not emotional because like I'm not emotional. I know I sound it, but like we processed before the show. I was really calm at the end of the game. This is just me saying like this is clearly a coaching issue. It's clear as day.
Yeah, I think you can just I've been thinking about this a fair amount. Even I think it started at like halftime. I started thinking about this. I'll jump to the Jalen thing first and then get into what I think about everything else. I'm just getting very strong Lamar Jackson vibes. Lamar Jackson was always a talented player. Everyone knew how good he was. This is the first year, and they're a number 1 seed, where universally people agree they brought in the correct head coach or the correct offensive coordinator and the correct like talent around him to use his skills successfully. And look how well he's playing. The biggest problem in Baltimore was that they never brought in an offensive coordinator who could put him in the position to succeed. They never put the talent around him, from a skill position perspective, so that defenses weren't only looking at Jalen or at Lamar Jackson. What they've done this year is they've got the talent on par, to a certain extent, and they brought in an offensive coordinator who he obviously gels with, and they're on the same page. And look at the season he's having. 3 or 4 years ago, when he kind of held out and like didn't come back from that injury, everyone was talking about, is anyone going to sign him ever again because of his attitude and because of all this? Like I'm just getting very similar vibes that we saw last year, what Jalen Hurts can look like when he's on the same page as the person making the calls, making the play calls. We saw the ideal scenario. We've seen it. Like, we lived through it. We don't have to guess or imagine what it is. And I think the overall issue is that this team, from the top to bottom, Laurie, Howie, top down, made assumptions that we can win just based on the talent we have. It's not going to matter who's calling the plays. It's not going to matter that we have 2 first-year coordinators in here. We have so much talent that it's unstoppable. Everything will correct itself because we have the talent. It didn't work. From top to bottom, they got slapped in the face with their own cockiness based on last year. And look, I get it. Your coordinators left. That's not anyone's fault. They took head coaching jobs. Nobody will blame those 2 men for doing what they had to do. But they just thought that, yeah, we can have a first-year play caller work with this level of talent. It'll be fine. They'll get open. It'll work out. Same thing on the defense. We can have a first-year coordinator come in, just do what he wants to do. Everything will be fine. Like, they whiffed, and they whiffed hard. And didn't matter the talent. They were more talented than most teams they stepped on the field with, maybe outside of 2 or 3. It didn't matter. When your team has no confidence in what they're hearing in their headset or the play being called or the defensive scheme that they're put in, or they have no confidence in their responsibility or where they're supposed to be on the football field, this is what happens. I think this was a slap in the face for not only like the talent on the team, but Howie, as you mentioned. Like, they all just thought they could get by and they could take some risks in areas that they deemed weren't important. Every single one of those areas came back to bite them in the ass. Every single one of them. Every single one. You paid 2 30-plus-year-old cornerbacks. I will give credit to Darius Slay. He had a fine season.
Yeah, he actually played really well tonight.
James Bradbury shouldn't ever be paid $1 to play football ever again. Like, you're going to have to cut him, and you just signed him to an extension. You didn't prioritize safety, backup corners, possibly thinking that the 30-year-olds would get hurt, or things like that. Completely disregarded the linebacker position and just thought, yeah, a first-year coordinator can figure it out. Look at the talent on the D-line. That talent was fine, but also regressed. And had a second-year guy and a rookie that you leaned a lot on. Your best two players were the oldest players on that defensive line. And I thought Milton Williams, for the times he was in, actually played pretty well.
He played really well tonight. Yeah. He did. Yep. 100% correct.
So that's what happened, man. And then from an offensive side, like, you handed the reins to a Maserati, to a Lamborghini, to a 12-year-old is essentially the correlation. Like, cool.
Yeah.
You got this much car, and it can do anything you want. Anything you can think of, this thing can do.
Yeah.
And you handed it to someone who is ill-equipped to take advantage of the talent.
The truth to that article, though, still looms large in my head. Like, did he take the keys away from Johnson, and for what?
Yeah, I mean, look,
we'll never know.
No,
we'll never know. We'll never know. I mean, we might. Some things will get released if they all get let go. I want to point one thing out about the offense. Real quickly, that was tweeted by Next Gen Stats about 10 minutes ago, which again is defense of Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was under pressure in under 2.5 seconds. Okay, under 2.5 seconds, Regs. 13 times tonight against the Bucs defense, which ties his career high. I'm assuming against the Bucs defense 2 years ago. The Buccaneers generated 10 unblocked pressures, tied for the most in a game by any defense this season. Rex, that's not on Jalen. Like, it doesn't matter who he sees, where he sees them, when he sees them. As a matter of fact, there were a couple of times where he saw guys, threw it to them, and the Bucs it felt like the Bucs had 27 guys playing.
It did. How could they blitz that many people yet still be absolutely on every single person?
It was amazing.
Because Baker Mayfield threw a touchdown in the air without knowing where it was going and scored a touchdown when we blitzed them.
With Nicholas Morrow right in his face.
When we blitzed, Baker Mayfield could just throw it in the air to nobody and it became a touchdown.
But like that's a Sirianni problem. Honestly, I'll say this, knowing how much I love the guy, it's a Stoutland problem, and even more how much I love the guy, a Kelsey problem.
Listen, like, we're going to talk about how much we love him.
Yeah. But like, that's what
very quickly became very old and tired and was not playing very well the past 7 weeks.
Yes, but no. Actually, I was listening to an interview with Jordan Mailata on WIP the other day, and Jordan was asked like about the blitz and like what the problem was. And Jordan said, like, here's the thing. Every team in the league knows that the smartest guy on the field is Jason Kelsey.
Oh, I'm not doubting his ability to recognize. I'm talking about.
No. But he said what they're doing is they're putting more like unique blitz packages together and doing everything they can to confuse him. Like they're just trying to confuse him. Now, here's the thing, Regs. Like, again, I'm not trying to only excuse Jalen, but what I'm trying to do is put the perspective into people's minds. Like, this dude had 10 different blitzes tonight where dudes came unblocked, not touched, right at him 10 times. 10. Like 13. What did I read you? 13 of these. 13 times there were guys in his face in under 2.5 seconds. Riggs, that's like the snap hits his hands and someone's standing next to him. And we want to blame Jalen? I don't care if it's his job to read it before the snap. It doesn't matter if he sees it before the snap or not. There's not enough time to get the ball out. Like, you can't move in under 2.5 seconds. That's a blitz pickup issue. That's what that is. It's not a Jalen issue. I'm really frustrated. Twitter is just it's such a like I'm so happy that the season's over because it's such a toxic place. And like you can't like read anything without someone just spewing nonsense.
Yeah,
It's just
think
crazy.
I think unfortunately this season was just the worst possible scenario. There was a regression by most of their best players. We can probably name a few that did just fine, right? AJ Brown had a good season. Devontae Smith, his effort today, which by the way,
Jesus.
good
Yeah,
Lord.
wait, let's stop there for a second.
That guy is your number 2 receiver,
Yeah.
is ridiculous.
They need to empty the bag
Yes.
on him.
Yes.
Like, empty the bag on him
Yes.
this year. Simple as that.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I just so again, I think in a majority of your best players had a regression season. Combine that with a complete failure of coaching, and this is what you get. This is what happens. I don't think you can blame one. I don't think you can blame one and not talk about the other, because I think both are true. And I think both equally kind of lead to one thing or the other. But your players didn't play as well, and you combine that with your coaches completely didn't have the ability to come up with anything that would help their players. And this is what you get. This is what you get.
Yeah.
A team that doesn't have an answer to any question that the opposing team asks. And to be quite honest, doesn't have the players to even execute on the things you normally do. Because other teams have figured that out and you don't have an answer. So this is just it's just where we are right now.
I want to say one more thing about the offense. I mean, I'm sure we'll say more about the offense, but I just want to reiterate 10 unblocked dudes, Regs. 10. He never stood a chance tonight. Not at any point did he stand a chance tonight with 10 unblocked guys coming at him. Sorry. I'm sorry. He just didn't. He didn't.
Well, look, no, I agree. But Jalen does have the tendency to hold onto the ball.
2.5 seconds.
I'm not saying on all the time, and I'm not discounting the fact that that's true. I'm not discounting it. I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm not anything. I'm just talking about obviously unblocked people is the most difficult thing to handle well. But there are things you can do offensively to try and get the ball out of your quarterback's hand as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and that's a coaching thing.
You're right. No, that's what I'm saying. So that aspect of it failed. And when you that's when you combine it with, if you don't have plays that get guys open quicker than when the people are getting to your quarterback, what do you expect to happen?
Or protections that not everybody's coming free.
Well, the issue is that most of the time when the Eagles see blitz, they're in they're spread out as far as possible. They don't pull a tight end back in. They don't get a chipper on somebody. They don't.
They do that as a counter to all right, well, if you're gonna send 8, we're gonna spread 5.
Right. But when your route tree is then 7 yards down the field for every one of those plays,
correct.
What is your quarterback supposed to do when your route takes 3 seconds and he only has 2 seconds? What are you supposed to do?
Or when he puts a ball right on a tight end's hands and he drops it.
Sure.
Like and again, like they showed the replay and showed, was it Julio or Devontae coming across the middle? And he was open. And he didn't throw to him, he threw to Dallas instead. Like, okay. He still hit Dallas right in the hands. Done and done. Like, I don't
no, I agree. But I think I'm not saying the majority of it or that Jalen deserves the entire blame for this, but I do think that some of Jalen's flaws as a quarterback is that he bails. Like he doesn't at this point. And again, this is part of coaching also. There's nothing to check into. So he's got nothing, like he can't do anything. There's nothing the route tree is too long, so there's really nothing to throw to. But also, like, I don't know. I'd love to see a stat of like how many times did Jalen Hurts step up in the pocket to try and escape pressure, as opposed to
on a blitz though. It's really like you can't always step up.
And again, maybe I'm comparing it to too much. Like but the issue is you're paying him like one of the best 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. So again, it's difficult to compare. Like it's a very tough comparison. Like if you bring in like a Mahomes or somebody like that, who seems to get out of every single thing that the defense throws at him.
Allen.
Right.
Josh Allen.
But like
I'm watching those teams play. And I watch the blitz. And those route trees aren't verticals.
No, you're exactly right. Again, I think
like
if we're just like, I wish I could put a percentage on it. I just think like a majority of the percentage is exactly what you're talking about. But Jalen doesn't get off from it.
The other
even if it's 5% and like the rest of everything else going on is 95%.
Put the dude under center once in a while.
Well,
for Christ's sake.
Again, that's a scheme, and
it is, which we don't have. I wanna just say 2 things from the locker room updates here. Brandon Graham just basically said, I'm coming back next year. It's like, if they'll have me back, I want 1 more year, and this will be it for me. This is my farewell tour as an Eagle. Which, look, Brandon Graham played fine this year. As a rotational defensive end, he's totally fine. They still need to add at that position. They need Josh Sweat looked better tonight.
This is the first game though in 10 weeks that he's looked decent.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, you put a better. I think he's also hurt. Truly, I think something's wrong with Sweat. We'll find out. And I think with a better defensive coordinator, we'll see Hassan Reddick from last year and not whatever the hell this was. God, I never thought I'd miss Jonathan Gannon. And then
again, sometimes, you know, relatively.
Hassan Reddick did not drop into coverage last year. That's all I'll say.
That's correct.
That is all I will say.
But again, we knew Matt Patricia wasn't going to be good at his job. And
Lane Johnson said he still has more years left in him, so he'll be back too. I do think Fletcher will be back.
I agree.
I just don't. So really, at this point, you're losing Jason Kelce, which sucks. Unless those 3 can look at him and say, "Look, let's give it 1 more year together."
He's also not talking. That's what ESPN
He's
said.
not talking tonight.
Yeah,
he's gone.
Yeah,
he's gone.
He wouldn't. He's not talking because he wouldn't be able to hold it together.
Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna read you a quick list, and then we're gonna go into the defense.
Okay.
These are the free agents, and I'm just gonna run them off real quickly. All right, would you bring them back or not? These are the guys that are leaving.
I'm gonna give you yes or
Fletcher,
no. Yes means
Fletcher,
bring them back.
Yeah, Fletch.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Brandon.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Swifty.
Yes.
No.
Who else do they have?
Well, they got Kenny, and they can go get somebody. But like, if you're talking top
How much is
running
he
back
cost?
Top running back money, he ran for 1,000 yards this year.
Okay.
I mean, unless he's going to give him a hometown discount.
I'm saying yes on the caveat that I don't know who else they could get. Let me just put that out there. I'm saying yes with a caveat that I want to be able to take this back if like
I'm going to say
Derrick
no
Henry
with the caveat. I'm gonna say no with the caveat that like if Jalen is healthy next year, it doesn't matter who the running back is because Jalen as a threat in the run game changes everything, and it doesn't matter who you have back there. Miles Sanders was ridiculous when Jalen Hurts could run.
Yeah, I'm
This
still
year,
gonna stick with yes.
I will say this. One thing I will say, DeAndre Swift ran for 1,000 yards without Jalen being able to run. So maybe I changed my mind on that. Quez Watkins.
No, for the love of Christ.
Yeah, no.
Rid us of this.
Asua Opeta.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I'd bring him back. I think he's fine in terms of like a depth guard.
Yeah,
I don't have
he's
an issue
not
with
good.
bringing
Like,
him
I don't
back.
want him to see the field ever, but
No, but if you have an injury for a week or
again,
two,
I don't know enough depth guards to be like, no, we should go get this guy. You know what I mean? So
Right.
like, that's beyond my knowledge.
Yeah. He's fine.
Yeah.
We already know that he's capable of 2 or 3 weeks and being fine. All right, I'm gonna couple these guys here. There's 3 of them. Nicholas Moreau, Zach Cunningham, Shaquille Leonard.
No, and no.
Yeah. They need to just draft.
They need to just
like
complete. You need to pay. You need to pay for one, and you need to start drafting some guys that can play there.
Please bring me Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Like, I don't care what it takes to get that kid. Get him in an Eagles uniform. Bradley Roby.
No.
No, I want to draft. I want to
Yeah,
draft
slot corners or yeah.
They need to draft there. How about Z?
Who?
Omalade Zacchaeus. OZ.
Sure.
I don't think I'd be opposed to it.
No,
Like
he
I
plays
would like
hard.
To have another veteran.
He blocked down the
Yeah.
field. Like he hustles his ass off. Again, if he's my number 4 wide receiver,
Sure.
cool.
Yeah, I think I'm good with that. Boston Scott.
Indifferent at this point.
Same. I mean, if he'd come back on like that one of those 1 year
indifferent
deals,
at this point.
I think this is an easy no. Mariota.
Yeah, no, who cares?
Julio.
No, just because I don't know where you put him. Like, what does he become? I don't really want him to be my number 3. You know what I mean? But like,
No,
he
I
also
don't
doesn't
even know
need
if
to
he'll
be
wanna
as
come
like
back.
number 5. You know what I mean? It just seems like
Yeah.
I appreciate him. He played his butt off today.
Yeah, until he got hurt. Yeah. Rashad Penny, probably not.
No.
Braden Mann.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, I absolutely. I thought he was
Was
great for
perfectly
them.
happy with the punting. Yep.
Yeah, I thought he was great.
Happy with it.
Rashad Penny.
No.
Oh, I said him.
You did.
Jack Driscoll. I think I would.
Again, I guess, but again, I don't know. Like, I have no better answer.
I mean, you're basically like you're expecting Tyler Steen to be the guy then, which I don't know if Steen ends up being the starting right guard next year.
Right. Who
If,
moves to
you know-
center if Kelsey's done? Dickerson?
No. Shit. Due to it, Jurgens.
Jurgens, okay.
Yeah, they drafted him as a center. I mean, unless they go get a center this year.
He was the one who played center at Alabama, right? Jurgens?
No, Jurgens didn't play center. That was Dickerson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then obviously it says Jason Kelsey also needs to make a decision on his future.
Yeah.
So really, like, they don't have a ton of key free agents. Like,
Almost none.
at the end of the day, my assumption is they're cutting Bradbury.
Please, God.
Like, they're cutting Bradbury. Ringo's going to end up a starter. I would assume they bring Slay back, but they're going to draft corner or sign.
I mean, he's
somebody
signed
else.
for another year or two, isn't he?
Yeah, so's Bradbury.
Well, there's a difference there.
There is.
But we don't know what that injury was either.
It's probably his knee.
He was grabbing his like lower back.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I don't. Yeah, we'll see. I mean,
Again,
if
a
it's
30-plus-year-old coming off of 2 knee surgeries.
Yeah,
Like he
I
might
mean,
have just.
look. They might just cut both of them.
It might have been that. Like this might have been as much as he had to give us this year.
Yeah. Safety wise, I'd cut Byard.
Yeah, don't need him back.
Especially
at that age.
Obviously, with Sidney Brown's injury, he's not going to be able to start. But one of the things I'd consider is moving Avante to safety full time
Really? He ran into 3 people tonight.
because he hasn't done it. He literally got thrown into it this week.
I kind of don't need him back either.
As a safety, I'm good with it
Okay. Well, yeah.
because I think as a safety, he's probably less injury prone
Go get
because he's not
go
involved
get
in
Buddha.
every play.
Go give me Buddha.
They're not going to get Buddha. I think they just don't value the position enough. But I think he's smart enough. He played it really well a couple years ago when he was prepared for it.
But don't you think this is one of those places that they overcorrect? Don't you think this is one of the places that like Laurie and Howie go into this offseason saying this can't happen again?
No,
the
because they
level of
don't.
talent.
They don't. Every year it's the same.
I
mean,
understand,
look,
but like, when's the last time
got lucky.
it bit them in the ass like this?
They got lucky, not lucky, but I think they might go into free agency and get a dude because they have not had a dude since Malcolm Jenkins. And I think that they might do that, and they might go get a dude at linebacker, whether it be in the draft or because that's what they need. Like if Slay is okay and he comes back and plays outside corner next year, and you have Kaylee Ringo on the other side, then you're probably okay in terms of that, right? I'm not sure what else you do. Like offensively, you're pretty set. You are pretty set. Like they're gonna add to the running back room one way or the other.
Yeah, and you need a legit third wide receiver.
They're gonna go get it. Whether it's in free agency or in the draft, they'll grab a third wide receiver. But like outside of that, and doing the post June 1 cut on Bradbury saves you a little bit. It's the best way to do this, and it has to be done.
You just can't. You can't put him on the field anymore.
So I want to just transition to the defense real quickly. It was pretty embarrassing tonight. The effort tackling was embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean outside of some defensive line play.
I thought the defensive line played really well tonight. Actually, there were moments early where it was not great, but I thought they settled in pretty well. Milton Williams had some big plays, like the second down and 1 stop, and then the big sack on Baker.
Yeah.
Brandon and Fletch made some big plays. Again, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis just kind of went absent tonight. I'm really hoping that
Carter had like a tackle in the backfield. Carter,
but they got called for a penalty on that, or the holding, and then converted a play to Mike Evans, first and 20 to first and or second and 1. I think Jalen Carter will be just fine. I don't know about Jordan Davis. I'm not ready to kill the kid yet. Like BG wasn't BG until his 3rd or 4th year. So
I mean, and typically defensive tackles aren't fantastic their first couple years.
Yeah, it's always going to haunt me a little bit that Kyle Hamilton wasn't the guy, but and that is not revisionist history, folks. Like I'm a Notre Dame fan.
We talked about that the draft, that draft. We talked about it.
Yeah, it's not revisionist history. That's just me loving. That's me loving Kyle Hamilton.
I think what I'll say quickly about that is I think this year proved that Jordan Davis is not going to be a all-pro defensive tackle for the rest of his life. Could he still be a great double team eater and run stopper? Yes. Do I think this year hopefully maybe open his eyes as the shape that he has to be in and what he has to do to be able to stay out there to play this much? Yes. So I still think he could be a good to very good defensive tackle, and do his job very well. He's not going to get 8 sacks. He's not going to be one of those guys. That's what you have the guy next to him for. That's what Jalen Carter's going to be. Jordan Davis needs to get in better shape, be out there, and learn how to shed some blocks and make run stopping tackles. That's going to be how he makes a very fine living in the NFL for a long time.
Mm-hmm. their big needs, because again, I feel good about the front. I think they might need another edge rusher, like a depth edge rusher, especially if BG comes back. And another veteran like defensive tackle.
You just need
Just
something. You need somebody who can produce in between Brandon Graham, who's up there in age, Nolan Smith, who I think is getting it, but just like
showed some flashes tonight.
yes,
You did,
but also is still very much out of his depth sometimes.
yeah.
And like you just need a middle ground from your like
Oh,
Reddick
like
and your Sweat.
like the way Derek Barnett's playing in Houston.
Well,
right now.
I think that was just bound to happen. You know what I mean? That was bound
But
to
that's
happen.
the type of player you just need. That type.
You
of
just
player.
need a middle ground, a
Yeah,
guy who can
yeah.
still be effective off the edge, understands what's going on. Like you just can't have so much of a gap. Like there's too much of a gap right now.
Yeah.
And that causes you to have to play your dudes, and this is how tired they get.
Yeah, for sure. Real quickly, Eagles since week 13, including the playoffs, winning percentage 143, 31st in the NFL. Opponents points per game 31, 31st in the NFL. Points per game margin negative 11.5, 31st in the NFL. Turnover margin negative 8, 32nd in the NFL. To me, that looks like a team that needs to fire their head coach. Just let's quickly just finish up with the defense.
Yeah.
The tackling was poor.
Oh my God.
The middle of the field was poor. I thought the outsides were pretty good. Like Mike Evans didn't kill them tonight.
Poor is like a nice way to put it with the tackling.
Yeah. I mean, there were some drops, but like there were a couple of throws to Evans downfield where I thought like Slay was pretty tight in coverage. Like it wasn't like he had him by 5 yards and he just dropped it. Like Slay was within a yard to half a yard.
I think that's just normal like NFL variance.
Yeah. It's got to be perfect on those throws. Like think about the Jalen throw to Devontae. Ball's right on the money.
Yeah.
And there were two guys there. You just
very
put it right
close
on the
to
money.
him. Yeah.
It was just a really good throw. Like you said, NFL variance. So for me, when I think about tonight, the middle of the field was a disaster, which it usually is. Which means they need.
If you're in a fantasy league and you have a tight end playing the Eagles, like just take him, just pick him up for that week. He'll have the most receptions he'll ever have in his entire career.
I legit have never heard of the dude from.
No, of course you haven't, because nobody has.
I think for me, like I watched the Dak pick 6 yesterday. When was the last time an Eagles player made that type of play in the middle of the field? Maybe Malcolm Jenkins.
Maybe.
Like I truly don't remember, Regs. Like I don't remember.
Cunningham got his hand on the ball, and it might have been the best play an Eagles linebacker made all year.
And both of them should have been picked.
Yeah.
There was also the play on the sideline where Bradbury. It took him 7 years to get there. That ball should have been picked.
Well, no, somebody ran into him that play. That's why when I texted you, I've never seen a team run into themselves twice in a game in my entire life.
I want to go back. Like I don't want to ignore your point about Avonte. I just want to be fair. In like Avonte was asked to play safety like 5 days ago.
I get that, but like, again, always hurt. Like we've had him for how many games?
I know. Well, I'm the one who says it all the time.
Yeah.
I want a new slot corner.
Yeah.
But one thing that I will say is if you put him at safety and he makes it through like 5 weeks, Sidney Brown's back. So like I just think it might be the right move for him at this point in his career. Like I don't know. He made it through tonight without any injuries, and that's rare. So
yeah,
like
right.
I don't know. Safety and linebacker are the places where I feel like if Slay is okay and can start the year next year, Slay and Ringo feel pretty good to me on the.
Yeah, I'm just a little nervous about a 30-plus-year-old corner who's coming off of maybe 2 lower extremity surgeries.
No, I get that, but I still think until that injury, he played just fine tonight.
Yes, I agree. We've said this the whole time that Darius Slay has not been the issue with this defense for the most part.
But
again, do I think that Darius Slay has been put in the best position to play and do well? No. No, I do not.
And that's what I'm kind of saying. Like we talked about this a little bit before, and I think it's time to get into what we feel like needs to happen here with the coaching. Obviously, tonight was a disaster. It was just an unmitigated disaster. They were
Yeah.
not prepared again. Offensively, they were not prepared. Defensively, they were not prepared. Look, I was one who said, and I will own this, when they put Patricia in the position, I said it can't get worse. And it got a hell of a lot worse.
Shocker, it could.
Yeah, shocking that it could, but it did. And you wonder that might have poisoned the locker room. And some of you has to think like, whose decision was it? Sirianni has taken ownership of that decision. So if it was truly his decision, I don't know how you don't fire him. Like that was his decision. Also, him taking over play calling in some situations was his decision. I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. What would you do? Like who's gone? Obviously, Patricia's gone.
Patricia's gone.
Brian Johnson probably gets a job somewhere or he's gone. Desai is gone. But is Nick Sirianni gone?
I know.
Let me ask you this
I know.
way.
Silence is a fun way to podcast.
Do you think he should be
I also
gone?
just saw this from ESP. Hassan Reddick with a strong defense of Nick Sirianni. Says the decision is above his pay grade, but clear he wants Sirianni back. I think, here's my true opinion. I think that Nick Sirianni, as a third-year head coach, correct? This is his third year with the team?
The third year, 3 straight playoffs.
He's in his third year with the team. And like the rest of the team, they got punched in the mouth after the 49ers and the Cowboys losses. And I think he overreacted. I think he made a panic decision about the Patricia Desai thing. And I think if you asked him now, he'd say, like, he'd look back and it'd be a huge regret of his. Because it would have to be. If you couldn't look back at that and be true to yourself that was a bad decision. I think that taking some of the play calling away from Brian Johnson in whatever capacity that's true was a panic decision. This is a guy who, for the most part, in his time as a Philadelphia head coach, has had nothing but success. And I think that it really got to him when, like, the walls were closing in. I'm not saying that's a great trait to have as a coach. It's not, just for the record. Not a great trait. But I have continued to hear from players publicly that there are traits about Nick Sirianni that they appreciate. Given that fact, I am willing to give this man a chance to look back at this year, because I truly do think Nick is someone who can be honest with himself and say, like, this was a very bad choice. Or like, I made this in like haste and it was the wrong decision. And I should have just like taken the time to think about it and like the consistency of things. Like, I didn't think about all these things. Again, that's not great. Let me be very clear. That's not great. But Bill Belichick sucked balls as the Browns head coach. You know what I mean? Like, there are examples all the time of like coaches need to learn these things. Like, when do you learn the most? When you fail. And I do think that Sirianni is a guy who could look back at that and is willing to change how he handles something. So until I hear directly from players, or there's some very well-sourced like quotes that come out that the players as a whole are done with Nick Sirianni, I at this point would give him the chance to learn from his mistakes. because I think we all need to be very clear about this team. Like, we are not Super Bowl favorites until they can prove to us that they can fix these issues. Do I expect them to make the playoffs? Yes. The NFC is not that strong. I think this team could be 12-6. You know?
Well, next year's schedule looks a hell of a lot easier than this year.
But just regardless, I think this team should be making the playoffs with the level of talent. Like, given that fact, I'm willing to give Sirianni a chance to reflect and see if he can correct these things. I am. I'm willing to give it one more try.
But like, here's my issue with that. And look, I've been a Sirianni guy. Like, we went this whole year with the same flaws. 18 games with the same flaws and no changes.
I have no argument against it. I truly think, if you wanted my honest opinion, and again, this isn't great, but this is just what I think happened. They came off the Super Bowl. They started 10-1. That gauntlet happened. Sirianni quickly realized that his coordinators were not equipped enough to handle what was being thrown at them. And I think just like he didn't try to fix the problems in the best way they could have been fixed. He made quick, rash decisions, that in the moment he thought would be the right ones. He was wrong. He failed. He failed at those decisions. Until I hear that he's lost the loyalty of the players and things like that, I'm willing to allow him to look back and learn from those things. If you can put people around him that can you know what I mean? I think he needs to realize that and this is what I think honestly Dan Campbell has realized and is good at. I don't think Dan Campbell steps into those things. He's perfectly willing to allow he'll give his opinion as the head coach. I'm sure he has opinions on schemes and how things are done.
I'm sure he has a lot of opinions on schemes.
But you have to think that he's set up his people and he's willing to be I set these people up for success. I'm going to let them do their job. And I'm going to motivate them, and have their back. Sirianni, as we've heard, is a loyal guy, who will have his players' backs at all times. And I think he got stuck realizing that he's not the best schemer. I think we can all be pretty clear about that. He's not the best schemer. He's not for all the.
So let me ask you, what does he do well then?
At this point, I think that he still can keep a locker room together. I think that his loyalty to players sticks out to players. I think it does.
Yeah, I can find somebody else who's loyal.
Sure.
I can find somebody else who's loyal.
But if you're just looking for... But I think the other thing we have to think about is that this team now has been to a Super Bowl and been to the playoffs. Getting rid of a coach that has that kind of success doesn't happen. It makes the organization look a certain way. It shows the players something. It shows something to the players about how this organization is run. You have to take those things into account. If you can bring in people at the coordinator positions that aren't in their first year, that have a proven track record, of being able to figure this stuff out, I do think that they could be in a fine spot.
So basically, this is Nick. You can just kind of stand there with your headset, but we're taking all power away. It's what they told Doug, and Doug was like, "Nah, F that, I'm out." Like, Doug had no control over anything. They were gonna just take everything away from him. And Doug won a damn Super Bowl. So, like, I'm
I just don't know how Nick could look at all this and be like, yeah, I did really well at this stuff.
well, that's what I'm saying. This is a guy who refused to change for 18 weeks. 18 weeks he refused to change anything. Like, and when he finally did change, he changed the only things that were working. Like, we went the last 7 weeks bitching and moaning that their only answer for the blitz was 4 vertical routes. And he never, like, nothing, like there was some variance to that tonight, but not like, all right. And let's even go away from that. He made the decision. We sat here on this podcast like a week and a half ago and said, you know what? Don't play any of the starters because it's not going to be a good thing. Reed Blankenship out, injured. AJ Brown out. Like Sidney
Yeah.
Brown out.
By all
Like,
accounts, the players wanted to play.
I mean,
I mean, again, it's not a great look. I get it. I'm not like happy about
I
it.
also hear like, you know, they're defending him. They're like, I don't know what else they'll say. Like, they're not going to come out and be like, oh, he's an asshole. And like, they're still under contract. The guys that they're asking.
I mean, you could very easily subtly hint at.
I'm going to tell you right now. Here's what Jeffrey Lurie's going to do. He's going to pull Lane Johnson, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, and Jason Kelsey in and say, tell me the truth.
Yeah.
And those guys are going to tell him the truth.
Yeah.
Like they're going to tell him the truth. And if it's not the guy, it's not the guy.
Well,
Like,
right. Again, I don't know what they're going to say. I'm trying to make this decision from obviously an extremely outside
I totally
perspective.
get it. But like Regs, like I've been a Sirianni guy. Like I've said to everybody who's asked me, I don't want to fire the guy. But like I'm watching this team tonight and I'm like, they're not prepared. They scored 9 points and they knew what this team was going to do. They knew it was going to be blitz all night. Like, he's supposed to be an offensive-minded head coach. They scored 9 points tonight. He took 4 off the board on his own. He took 4 off the board on his own tonight. Like, I don't know what he does.
Yeah.
He gave up play calling. He's not a defensive guy. He took back play calling, I guess, according to Tim McManus, and no one knows who the hell's calling plays. And like we say, yeah, they like him. There's a good culture. You know, it's all good. They didn't play like it. Like if you have a good culture and you love your leader, that you don't come out not tackling tonight. Like you come out swarming tonight. You just do. I don't know, man. Like I'm not. Again, like I know I sound emotional, but I also know that Jeffrey Lurie fired a dude who won a Super Bowl a year after he won a Super Bowl. Like,
Listen,
2 years after he won a Super Bowl.
I get it. Am I gonna like question the decision like crazily? No. But to me, it also depends on like, well, what's your answer? Like if it's not Nick, then like there's a very short list of guys.
Oh no, this is like the longest head coaching list of all time. Like there are dudes everywhere.
We need to run through some of this because like I maybe want like 3 of them. I'd be fine with Vrabel.
I mean Vrabel's there. Bieniemy's there.
I would take Bieniemy. That's fine.
You can get you said Vrabel already. I mean, look, we both said that we don't want him, but like Bill Belichick is there.
Yeah.
Like it's not like
pass.
It's not like he's not. I get it, but he's there. right?
I
Like it's the
understand, but
longest
again,
I've
that's
ever
not
seen.
the answer I'm looking for. Pass.
The offensive coordinator from the Detroit is there,
Yep. Brent, I'll
and he
take him as an offensive coordinator. Again, what do we know about that guy? How do we
he's
know he
getting
makes the right decision?
he's made Jared Goff look really freaking good
Okay.
with no weapons outside of Laporta
Does he
and St. Brown.
does he bring in the right defensive coordinator?
Well, that's like Lori and Howie say, we're bringing you in, but we choose the defensive
Okay.
coordinator.
They could do that
Done.
now.
Yeah, but then again, like Nick's in his 4th year. If you can't trust a 4th year head coach to bring in a guy, then why is he here? Like you just trusted him to do that, and he brought in 4 duds. Like 2 I should say 3 duds because 2 duds and then brought and made a switch to another dud. Like I look, you can take away the control, but like then what does he do? I don't know what he's doing. He's just there. He's a pawn at that point. And that's what they wanted Doug to be. And Doug was like, "No, I'm not going to stay to be a pawn." This was a generational collapse, man. Like it's unbeknownst. Like the only one that's comparable in current football is McDaniel in Miami. Like that was a horrendous collapse. And he's not being talked about in terms of getting fired. Why? Because he still runs a really prolific offense. Like I'd be curious to know what that game looked like had it not been played in that weather. And weather's always a factor, but like it might have been a different game. No one's talking about McDaniel getting fired, and I think they should be talking about it because they haven't been like good against good teams. But why isn't he being talked about? Because he still runs a really good offense. Like he still does what this league is looking for. Sirianni became so predictable that people were just like criticizing him left, right. Like professional football players, Hall of Famers were like, this is a badly coached team. Ray Lewis, Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, Troy Aikman, all calling out the coaching tonight. 18 weeks, 19 weeks, essentially, if you count the bye. And they weren't a good football team. Like, that offense has too much money invested in it to be that bad. So, I don't know. Like, I if they do bring him back, I agree with you. They're going to bring in head coaches who have been fired, but were good coordinators. My concern there becomes shit. Like, we're bringing in some retreads.
Yeah. I guess, listen, I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit here,
Go for it.
but like last year, Sirianni didn't call plays. What was he here for last year?
Well, then he could focus on the culture, but they were winning, so it's easy to maintain a culture when you win. Real leaders can maintain a culture when you suck.
I agree. But also, we also know that like real leaders also like eventually, I get it, I'm giving him a little leeway here, but like eventually when they truly have a chance to look back on it, learn from failure and get better. Right? So,
Yeah. I mean,
that's
they failed so much over the last 6 weeks, but
listen,
learned nothing.
again, I understand, but I think when you're in the middle of like I get it. I'm not saying Nick Sirianni is going to turn into Bill Belichick and like you know what I mean? Like I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that this is like what the Eagles need to like go on a run. Like Belichick and Brady, like that's not where we're at. Jalen Hurts is not Tom Brady. Nick Sirianni is not Bill Belichick. I get it. But outside of a couple guys who I think could come in here and would be trusted to like immediately be on the top of their game. Like again, I like last year happened. He didn't call plays last year. He wasn't calling like I get it. He made some bad decisions this year. He didn't have answers. I get it. But I think there's still a chance he could learn from those things. And with help, like, this team could be just fine, just like they were last year.
So
Where we
we're
weren't
gonna
talking about this. Like, we weren't talking about this stuff.
we're gonna start wrapping up here. I do want to say that I don't love his answer when asked how you know you can fix things, because we believe in ourselves. That's not going to be enough for Howie Roseman and Jeffrey to
No,
work.
it's
I
not.
can promise you that. He's going to need to pull a big name out of his cell phone to say, I'm going to bring this guy in to fix it. Because that's not going to be enough. Like, look, dudes can say what they want in the locker room after the game.
Oh, yeah. It all
I
comes
don't
down
I
to
don't
what they say behind closed doors.
yeah, I don't buy it. And you got 4 longtime veterans in that room who have been through 4 head coaches. Lane, BG, Jason, and I'm missing one. Oh, Fletch have played for 4 head coaches. They played for Andy, they played for Chip, they played for Doug, they played for Nick. Those 4 will look you in the eye and tell you whether this guy can lead a team.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm looking for, Regs, is a guy who can be here with the longevity of Andy Reid. I just don't want to do this every 3 years.
No, I'm with you there.
I don't want to do it every 3 years. And look, I really don't believe at this point I'm being reactionary. I watched this team for 7 weeks and nothing was changed. Nothing. Again, I want to know Jalen's knee situation. That might change my mind a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if the locker room truly felt the way that they're saying they felt about Nick Sirianni, at some point it would have looked differently. That being said, there are guys they can go get. One thing that I need is for this Nick Fangio style defense to go away. No more of this. We're gonna just take away the deep stuff and not get beat over the top. I need an aggressive defense.
Unless it's
like
the actual guy here coaching it.
Yeah, well, we missed out on that because of the dickhead in Arizona. So, we need somebody who's gonna be more aggressive. Like this is ridiculous now. Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work when it's not run the right way. Look, they can bring Wink in. He's out there. Like, go get a dude who's gonna send it the right way, because when the Eagles blitz, they blitz from 7 yards deep. It doesn't work. Like, you can't blitz from 7 yards deep. Notice how the Bucs blitz. They blitz from right up on the line. Like, ain't nobody coming from 7 yards deep. By the time you get to the line, the ball's out. So they need somebody a little more aggressive. I'm enough with this Vic Fangio defense. Enough. Like, look, you can say even with like the guy who does it, but like Miami's defense wasn't good. They weren't good. Enough. Just bring me a dude who's going to be aggressive. I've had it. That's something else Nick has to change. That's his style of defense, and it needs to go away. So we'll see, man. It's going to be an interesting week.
Yes, it is.
I don't know. I wasn't in on the Nick firing, and if I know that state of the team is they're going to bring him back, but they're taking complete control of coordinators, maybe I feel a little bit better. But I just don't know. Jeffrey Lurie is not a patient man, and he's been around this team a lot recently.
No, I mean, he's absolutely,
and that's never a good sign.
Nick absolutely has to answer the questions the right way.
I mean, who was it? Hugh Douglas, who said the only time I remember Mr. Lurie being around the team this much was when they were getting ready to fire Ray Rhodes. And this week he's been everywhere. He's been at practice. He's been in the locker room. I feel like it's coming, and honestly, I do feel like it after tonight it's warranted. This team got absolutely blown out in a game that they shouldn't have been blown out in. Like AJ Brown or not, like they shouldn't have been blown out. So we'll see what happens. Certainly it'll be an interesting offseason. Regs, I don't know what the hell we're going to talk about on Thursday unless they fire. So
I mean, at that point, maybe. Who knows?
I mean, if they fire him, we'll
I'm
do an
sure there'll
emergency
be some
pod probably
stories.
before them.
I'm sure there'll be some stories that'll come out that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some Jalen news. Jason has a podcast come out on Wednesday, so we could very well hear the news then too. With him not talking, you could see him getting on that podcast with Kylie sitting next to him.
Mm-hmm.
And Travis on the other side of the screen, and him announcing right there that he's retiring.
Yeah.
You can see it happening. Right then and there. I feel like Wednesday morning when that podcast gets released, that's what we're gonna which is he revolutionized that position. I think, as much as we've gone back and forth tonight, I think the place to end is on Jason Kelce. Because if tonight was the last time I watched him suit up, I'm disappointed in myself for not putting on his jersey. I debated it all night. I was like, I don't want to wear this jersey in a loss. Like I had talked myself into that they were gonna lose. So I refused to put the jersey on. And he took the snap at the end and then checked out of the game. And then they showed him on the sidelines and he was in tears and then hugging Stout. And he might have told him he was retiring right there.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks, dude. Like, it sucks. It sucks that he's going out this way.
Mm-hmm.
The guy like revolutionized the position. Like I revolutionized it to the extreme. It wasn't a position of athlete, and it is, to an extent now. They're never going to be able to replace Jason Kelce.
Nope.
It's the same way that they haven't been able to replace Brian Dawkins.
Yeah.
Malcolm Jenkins was damn good. He was damn good. It just, for as good as he was never going to be Brian.
Mm-hmm.
And shouldn't have been expected to be. And
Yeah.
I don't think the next center should be expected to be Jason Kelce.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to think that this guy who poured everything into the city is going to go out losing 6 of his last 7 games wearing that jersey. And watching him like hug and kiss his wife and stand on the sideline the way that he was standing on the side is like gut wrenching for me as a guy who loves him. My older cousin and I kind of got into it over Thanksgiving this year, and he talked about like he's a Steeler fan. And he said, "Well, I don't want my center to be like the center of attention. Like I don't want him to be like the prima donna who does the interviews and does the like. I just want him. I don't even want people to know their names." And I was like, I mean, people know his name and he talks in the media, but he's still really freaking good at playing that position. Like, doesn't change who he is. Like, I don't care what your perception is of Jason Kelce for doing a podcast with his brother and for being one of the most likable personalities on the planet. Like, he's still really good. And I think that's what Philly appreciates. Like, Philly appreciates authenticity. And Jason is who Jason is, and Jason will always be who Jason. So, it certainly seemed like tonight was it.
Yeah.
So I just, like, he'll never hear this. But, like, thank you, Jason. Like, thank you. I have 2 jerseys in my closet. One of them's Brian Dawkins and the other is Jason Kelce. And I'm very picky about the jerseys that I wear. That dude will forever be a legend in Philadelphia, and it's not because of this speech he gave, and it's not because of New Heights. It's because that dude poured everything he had into this. And we were lucky enough to experience that for a decade and a half. So I know this is probably it for him. And it's funny because, like, I'm not gonna cry about the loss. I'm gonna cry about losing arguably my favorite player of all time. I never thought anybody would come close to Brian Dawkins, ever. But Jason Kelce has. So we love you, man, and thank you for everything. I did this last year with BG, and he ended up coming back. So I'm kind of hoping that, like,
this is
maybe
the trend.
maybe we can offer him like 3 more kegs.
There you go. Yeah.
But I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. So Regsy and I will be back on Thursday. I don't know what we're gonna talk about because the Eagles are done. The Phillies apparently aren't doing anything else, and the Sixers, do they even exist? I don't know. So I'll try and read the rest of
figure
Harry
something
Potter
out. Yeah.
book 2, and maybe we can talk about that
There you go.
or something. Because good God. Otherwise, we'll see. I mean, there might be some coaching changes
right.
in Philadelphia. So, all right, thank you guys. I'm not going to go through. You can find us on all social media. Just the Phixated podcast, Mike Drop 5, Big Rigs with the Z on Twitter, Phixated fan page, merchandise link in the show description. Otherwise, have a good half of your week, and we'll see you on Friday morning. Take care, everybody. We love you, Jason.
Thanks, big guy.
Right field, way up there and way out of here. The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.